Jimmy Kimmel is apologizing for appearing in blackface. In this clip from 19 years ago, he's impersonating former NBA star Karl Malone. It aired on Comedy Central's The Man Show, which he co-hosted from 1999 to 2003. Kimmel's apology comes on the heels of his fellow late-night host Jimmy Fallon, who recently begged forgiveness for appearing in blackface on SNL in 2000 to portray comedian Chris Rock.
I realized that I can't not say I'm horrified and I'm sorry and I'm embarrassed.
All right, so on this episode of Street Interviews, we got a gentleman actually at a college university. I believe it's UCLA out there in California, of course. He's with Prager U, so I'll leave their links in a summary down below. And he's basically asking a question that since nowadays that men can transition to women and women to men, why can't someone transition their race? I mean, to me, it makes sense based on the premises that you can change your sex, then why can't you change your race? Now, I believe a lot of these students probably is going to disagree with that comparison, but I'm going to try to see if they convince me that that logic is not in line with being transgenderism. I believe it's not, but I don't know. These kids are in college, so they should be smarter than me. Let's see what they say.
I want to show you a couple pictures of prominent figures rocking blackface and get your reaction to it. Is that all right?
Very interesting. I did not. Okay.
This is Rachel Dolezal, who was a president of a chapter of NAACP, who identified.
Rachel Dolezal. I remember this lady back about 10, 15 years ago. It was a big, huge story back then. I believe guys like Al Sharpton and Roland Martin and all these black bourgeoisies got upset about this, saying that it was very offensive for a white woman to take a black woman's position or a black person's position as being the head of a chapter for NAACP. I mean, it was ridiculous back then. It's funny how those people do not conflate the two. They're okay with transgenderism nowadays, but back then they was very upset with trans-racialism. So he's making actually a good comparison here. Let's see what these students say.
Identified as transracial. She said that she was born in the wrong body and that she identified as black. This is Ted Danson at the Friars Club Roast in New York City. This is Sarah Silverman in blackface on her TV show. What do you think of when you see these images?
First of all, when it comes to something like blackface, first of all, comedy is very subjective. You know, it has to be the right timing. You have to know your audience and so forth in order for the joke to be received by the crowd. Now, those type of blackfaces, just paint yourself, you know, with black shoe polish. I mean, it don't even look that funny. Like, for instance, a great example of blackface that's actually funny, in my opinion, because like I said, comedy is subjective, is the movie Tropical Thunder with Ben Stiller. And the person that was in blackface in that movie was Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. Now, if you want to see a funny movie, check out Tropical Thunder. It's hilarious. You know, he's the white man playing a black man that's being a white man. It's hilarious. But a movie like that, in the right context and in the right timing, it's very funny. And then even back then, I think like it was 2010 that movie came out, people were not offended about the blackface. We found it funny. Unfortunately, nowadays, it'd probably be canceled.
It's not good. It's really bad.
Do you think people can identify as a certain race?
No, I do not believe you can identify as a certain race.
So do you think identifying as a different race is offensive?
This is a very good question. I think, I don't know. You can't become something that is recognized off of skin color if you weren't that skin color your whole life.
Right, because it's biological.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the case. It's the same thing with sex. You was in I forgot the person that's in the White House under Biden's administration, or hell, even Caitlyn Jenner. That was Bruce Jenner. You know, he was Bruce Jenner for like 60 odd years. Now he's Caitlyn Jenner, you know, and we're supposed to accept that as reality when we know it's not. So if the same thing applies to the gender, it should apply to the race. And so far, these people are not making any type of concrete rebuttals to the arguments.
Do you think that people who claim transracial are making a mockery of real black people?
Yes. Yes.
Once again, like I said, if the comedy is done correctly, it's not. I mean, the mockery is mockery, but it's in good taste. Therefore, it's funny. Like, for instance, White Chicks, the movie White Chicks with the Wayne brothers. I'm sure a lot of white folks find that movie funny, as I did as a black man. I mean, but the thing about it is that comedy is, like I said, it's about timing. It's about knowing your audience, and it's about saying something in a funny way that can resonate to the audience in front of you.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about woman face. Have you guys heard the term woman face?
No.
Have you heard this term? So this is men who identify as women, and then they benefit socially and financially from many cases. Do you guys know Dylan Mulvaney?
No.
So he transitioned, and after he transitioned to a woman, he has millions of dollars in brand deals. You have Leah Thomas, who has William Thomas, ranked very low on the swimmer scoreboards. After transitioning, was #1 in the country.
It's bullshit to me that you reap benefits for something you're not.
I think that is a completely different story. Being transgender is something where you can genuinely be born with different biological features or whatever, and that doesn't contribute to
This lady, young girl, she don't know what she's talking about. Thank God she's actually kind of pretty. Like they say, pretty women and very athletic men can go through society and be, I won't say dumb, but be misinformed. How about that? Or be ignorant. It's apparently what this happening to this young lady here. And also I would say that this kind of reminds me of the argument, I think it was last year or year before, in regards to the contrast of my body, my choice when it came to abortion. But a prior year before, you were told to take the vaccine, take the shot. It was not my body, my choice. But when the abortion came up, the next year, when they went towards the states and Roe v. Wade was overturned, people was like, no, it's my body, my choice. But the year before, you said, okay, whatever you want to tell me to do, government, I'll take the shot. So this kind of reminds me of that. It's not, the arguments are not in line with each other. Therefore, you come off as hypocrite.
gender or like societal norms at all. I think those are two completely different things.
Is woman face offensive?
I don't think that's woman face. I think those are people who were born in the wrong bodies.
Is her zipper down? Look like her zipper's down. Well, I guess you can see where my mind's at. But anyway, let's continue.
Who are becoming themselves.
So if you can identify with a different gender, why can't you identify with a different race?
The biological side of it, because race has no biological connections whatsoever. It's purely based off of physical appearances.
I just asked you if it was biological. You said yes.
Is recognized off of skin color. If you weren't that skin color your whole
Right,
life.
because it's biological.
Great way to do that in post editing and point that out. You know, the contradiction that she made, that was so blatant, and she didn't realize it. That's the thing about it. When you're so indoctrinated to something, you don't even realize that you're saying something against your own argument. That is like the epitome of indoctrination.
I mean, sex has biological backings, but gender is not. Gender is a spectrum.
Why is it socially acceptable to be transgender, but it's not socially acceptable to be transracial?
I think that's like they're very different things. I think that like.
See, that's another thing. When you just like tongue twisted, that means that you have not really thought through what you actually believe, your stance. You know, and then the thing about this whole transgenderism situation is that it's basically standing on wet cement. You know, your foundation is not strong enough to refute a lot of rebuttals coming against you. And these young people, they don't know what the hell they're saying.
I don't know how to phrase this in a way, but I would say like is.
I wouldn't say I'm educated enough to have the proper definition of like separating the two.
But what about like how Rachel Dolezal, she said that she was born in the wrong body, that she really is black. Why is that any different than being born in the wrong body and being a woman or a man?
I don't know how to explain it, but I know that it is.
You don't know how to explain it, then you don't know. It's kind of like, you know, when someone talks about like religion, you know, say, I can't explain it, but I just know how it is. You just go by faith, which is okay to a degree, but you have to get to a point where you can actually articulate your stance on your faith, or in this one, on your belief in this particular ideology.
I feel like people, they have the freedom to do what they want.
Is that an endorsement of transracialism?
Kind of got me, huh?
Do you see the hypocrisy here?
I do see the hypocrisy, but I don't think the hypocrisy is like, I'm not trying, how do I phrase this?
Maybe it's like, if I want to.
It's very unfortunate that at college, especially UCLA, you imagine these kids are getting well educated, but apparently they're being taught what to think, not being taught to how to think. So it's very sad, but that's our society, unfortunately.
Be a dragon. I can just be a dragon or something.
Why is it socially acceptable for people to identify as a different gender, but it's not socially acceptable for people to identify as a different race?
socially accepted to be identified as a different gender, but not race. I think the reason why is because there's already a level of disharmony and discontention when it comes to race. It's always going to be the whole thing with the black versus white, things like that, slavery in the history, based on the history of this country. But there's not really much of a discontention when it comes to the sexes. But now that you have this whole transgenderism bubbling up, it leads to that, to where we don't even know what a woman is. You know what I'm saying? It's going to come to a point soon where we're going to say we don't know what a man is. And right now it's leading towards this, overflowing over to schools, affecting the children now. Now you got whole things called trans kids and things like that. And I think that's what the whole objective is to lead towards, contagion in society. And transracialism is not really needed because the narrative is already there for chaos and for division when it comes to race. So that's why I think that the focus is more on transition when it comes to your biological sex, but not advocating for transition when it comes to your race. It's not needed.
Well, I don't know. That's a great question.
I hear a lot of people on this campus today that say the black face is wrong, but the woman face is totally acceptable. Why is there a double standard for race and gender?
That I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
And also what I think it is, because what's happening nowadays is that years before, when especially with a lot of men transitioning women, they would eventually go into the post-op. Obviously, of course, the first year or two you'd be pre-op, but eventually you had to go to post-op. That's what it led towards. Nowadays, you don't even have to do post-op. You could just basically say that you identify as that, and people have to believe it. And with the makeup industry and so forth, it's very unfortunate and very scary that some men actually look like women, and they don't have to have their, ding-dongs removed. But the thing with trans-racialism is too much work to do to, from an external standpoint, identify as a different race. Most people can't do that. But to identify as a woman when you're a man, yeah, shave your hair, apply a lot of makeup, put on a wig. Yeah, you do it. You're there.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, you guys, that is a wrap here at UCLA. Definitely an interesting one here.
Yeah, he knows. He just can't say what it is, but that's pretty much what it is. And wrap it up here as well myself. So that's my assessment when it comes to transracialism. Even though it sounds, something that should be allowed, since we allow the fact that you could transition based off your biological sex. I mean, it sounds like, to change your identification based on your race, it sounds like an alignment. But of course, a lot of these students have not been taught that. Therefore, they're going to disagree with that premises. So, but let me know what you think. I mean, if people can transition based off their sex, why can't they transition off their race? Why can't I be a Chinese man?